Hello, welcome back to the Trickway. I'm Trev. That's great. We have just literally watched episode 3 of Lord X, and I'm literally going to dock it half a point just alone for this, Greg. What we literally just discussed a moment ago. The title of this episode of season 5, episode 3 is called "The Best Exotic Nanite Hotel." That's got to be the shittest name for a Star Trek title in the whole history of Star Trek. Or
Yeah.
it's up there. Oh, man. Why? Glumpus? Do you not agree with Glumpus? Glumpus should have been the name, or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been much funnier, or at least involved Glumpus in the title somewhere. You know, they could have thought of something better.
Yeah, it was just well. That leads us on to the vibe of the episode. You thought it was a bit meh, like funny in points, but a bit meh.
Yeah, more like moments. In other words, moments that I really liked, and then lots of moments I was just kind of like, yeah. So
Would that be the relationship stuff that sent you to sleep?
no, because they've done
relation.
Well, I'll say yes, but they've handled relationship stuff on the show better than this. I mean, it was like, for instance, what was it? Tendi and I want to say Otherford. I'm Rutherford. I'm stuck on this Otherford thing. That's so funny from last time. No, but that whole relationship thing has been done well. The relationship with the Vulcan, forgot her name, was also done very well. Yeah. But this just seemed like off a little. It was like off kilter, and frankly, pretty boring. I was getting to the point where like, okay, I don't want to hear these two, talk to each other anymore. But
maybe it's equivalent of a filler episode then. Like, I know an animation it's not quite the same, but that's probably the filler episode because you thought it was a bit meh, a bit boring at points, and the title was a bit like meh, and they just threw it together.
The title's totally off. I mean, the title when it first came on almost turned me off right there because I was going like, why is this such a long, convoluted title name? I'm like, and now even more so since the episode is over. Now we finished watching it. Even more so, it seems kind of goofy.
Do you know who I think titled the episode?
Who?
Devin, the Vulcan. Because they do things very logically. That's a very logical title. It's not what a title of an episode should be. She would title it something like that, you know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a bit boring. I mean, the story wasn't amazing. The vibe of the episode being, it was a kind of cross between some shore leave mixed in with some official Starfleet business, with Philip and the commander going down to, what did they call that? The Royal Duchess, I believe they called, or the Duchess, something like that. It was that space station, which we've seen. I don't know if we saw that in the Kelvin verse universe, where they had, they were playing the Beastie Boys music, well, all those nanite swarm things that are coming to it. Listen, that's the only good thing about those movies, is the soundtrack. Beastie Boys was brilliant. The rest of it was shit. But that space station was in there as well. Or if it wasn't the same name, it was similar. Like the open, the glass top dome places. Everything's artificial. The sun. And one of the poor officers is concerned that Commander keeps putting them in danger and other officers in danger.
I thought that was the best running gag of the whole show. It wasn't very long because it was only like the beginning more or less, and then towards the end. But that was the funniest I think of the whole show. I'm also, as a little side note, I'm not happy that they don't have Dr. Cat much. She was barely in the last episode. She said like one word, and that was it. And I like her. She's great. And it's just like there's just not that she's just not nowhere to be found. Even what's his name? The security guy. Yeah, he was in it a little bit more last time, so that's okay. But Dr. Cat, man, 3 episodes and she's nowhere to be found.
The you call her that so Tiana, right? I had to Google that.
Tiana, yeah.
You call her Dr. Cat so feckin' much that I forgot her name. So you call her
I
Dr.
know.
Cat, and I'll call her Tiana. That'll be a lot easier.
I'll try to make my effort, but it's just she's just
Tiana is the best, right? Easily our favourite character, hands down.
yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why she's not in it all the time, because when she is in it, she just steals the limelight because she's so feckin' funny. She really is.
Well, remember
And
the
Shax
episode
is funny as well.
I don't know if it was last season or the one before that, but anyway, it was the one where we learned about Tiana's relationship with again, I'm forgetting her name again.
Yeah,
Security.
yeah.
Yeah. And that whole episode was one of the best of the series, man. That was great. I mean, it was just nonstop. I mean, laughter. She was coming up with the best lines because the whole show basically focused around those two, and they're both funny, so it was good. I thought that was a really good episode.
Can you imagine if? Well, can you imagine the actress that plays Tiana recording those lines and trying to keep a straight face, man? I mean, that's epic. But yeah, the best part of this episode was the whole angle of Ransom throwing his junior officers into danger, and this poor guy's like got no hands left because bats like literally chewed through his hands because
Piranha bats, he called it.
he's sent ahead, isn't he? Like he sends the officers ahead of it to make sure everything's safe, and they're trying to track down. It turns out this admiral that's went AWOL, and he has went AWOL, and they get captured. There's some things I quickly noted down which I found were pretty amusing. First of all, we never really discussed it in any great depth, and maybe we'll at some point, but I have to mention this again. The intro is bloody brilliant for this program. Like the whole thing, that one scene where there's so many episodes in there, like the crystalline entity, the probe from Star Trek 1, the Borg cube. I mean, that's just a few things. It's so detailed, man. That is, so see, whoever done that, genius. It's like Weird Wally, but for Star Trek.
Well, the thing that's cool about Lower Decks is they're always throwing in sight gags. There was stuff even in this episode, they would throw in and not say anything. You would just have to notice it in the frame. And I love stuff like that. That's like great. There was an old show back in, I guess, the 80s over here called Police Squad. They only did 6 episodes because they went on to the movies after that. But no joke, I had to watch each of those 6 episodes around 4 to 5 times each to catch all the sight gags. They were packed. I mean, there was stuff I didn't notice the first few times around. I'm like on the third viewing, and I go, oh, look at that there.
Yeah,
and it was crazy.
You got to like the Easter eggs, man. Tindy's back properly now, officially on the ship.
Yep.
Which kind of doesn't really work without her on the ship. Like you miss any one of those characters, the program doesn't work because they make the show now, don't they? Essentially, what is going on with Boimler's face? He's got more. I like to call it bum fluff.
Yeah.
He's got more like cartoon
Whiskers.
stubble, just like shit. Whiskers. Thank you. Yeah. What is he doing, man? Is he going for the beard? What do we think? Is he trying to grow a tread beard here?
Well, obviously,
do you know what this reminds me of? Evil Spot.
Yeah,
Evil Spot?
Okay.
Mirror Spot.
He had more of a Nimoy had more of a Fu Manchu though. It went like this, Fu Manchu kind of style, like this, without anything here.
Yeah. Well, I just pretend it's not there. It's fine. I'm Evil Spot. For those that are listening on the audio podcast, I'm growing some facial hair, and I'm kind of too lazy to take off. I probably will take off at some point, but I'm poor man's
you always
Evil
got to
Spot.
do that once in a while. See, I have the stubble. The stubble that I have is closer to Boimler. See, that's what he's doing. But the cartoon version of it is to put a few little hairs and just imagine the rest of the stubble.
Normally I would do the stubble, man, but I'm
Well, wait, I'm
lazy.
kind of wondering. Do you think by the time the season's over, Boimler will have a full beard?
Well, he'll make it look like episode 1 where he was not Otherford. What was the other Boimler called? I can't remember. The
Oh
other
yeah, I don't remember.
alternative Boims. Yeah.
Boinks.
He had the pointers. He had the whole beard thing going, so maybe
Yeah.
possible. So this episode had 2 or 3 different story arcs. We had the whole thing where Philip and the commander were trying to find the AWOL admiral, and they do eventually find the AWOL admiral, who just is fed up of getting all the ship missions. And he's work fatigued, and he basically goes AWOL because one of the last big missions he was put on was to milk space whales.
I know where it came up with that one. That sounded like something straight out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something.
Oh,
Milking
man.
space whales. But then he not only was it space whales, but he said different kinds of space whales.
Yeah.
He's going like, I'm milking all of them. Like, oh my god.
See, this is the thing, right? In Star Trek, there will be someone that has to do that for science. There will generally be someone just like in Planet Earth. There's scientists that will have to go out there and masturbate some whales for science. It just
You just got to do it.
You got to take one for the team, mate. I mean, that takes that takes probably 50 divers. But anyway, moving on before we
make more money though doing that. It'd be like hazard pay.
Moving on before we're cancelled.
You just pointed out something that I think may have been the fault in this episode. It wasn't just 2 plot lines or 3; it was like 4 or 5.
Because I was being generous.
It was too much. Whenever they just do maybe 2 plot lines, it's fine.
They can focus on it better.
Right. And last week was last week or the week before, whatever, where they basically followed really one main storyline for the most part. And that I thought was a much better way to go.
You always have 2 minimum. You always have 2 minimum. You can't have just one plot line. You always have to have like at least a plot B or something going on in the background too. Because you need to take a break. Otherwise,
I think the episodes that you and I liked the least were the ones where there was plot A, B, C, D, E.
But this episode, you're right. These only have 24 minutes. You can't afford to be chopping and changing so much,
Yeah.
So I like Ransom. He's funny. That's Boims. So Boims is literally getting put into some of these hazardous positions on the Royal Duchess, is it Duchess? Yeah, this space station.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things I noticed were getting shoved down an artificial ski resort, like ski slope thing, and landing on this random alien guy. He apologizes, and the alien guy was like, "Would you please get off my testicles?" To which Boimler says, "What are you talking about? I'm on your back." He's like, "Where else should it be?" Like, his balls were on his back. And then I automatically thought of Star Trek 5. What? Okay, no, was that 5 or 6? No, it was 6. It was 6, The Undiscovered Country. It was 6.
Right.
It was the alien that could shapeshift. And that one was, I remember that scene because Kirk kicks the guy in the knee. And he's like, "Oh, yes, I floored him by just kicking him in the kneecap." And that was when that sexy alien went, "Not everyone has their genitalia where you expect it to be." And he's like, "Oh," because I remember that whole angle was funny. Like, I think Bones was winding up Kirk, like, basically grab your coat, you've pulled, that kind of thing, because that's how weird alien was into him. So yeah, the Admiral does eventually come back. Because he gets the cool mission at the end, and the main plot probably of this whole episode was Olympus, which we should have named this episode in the first place. And for those of you that watch Stargate, particularly like SG-1 and Atlantis, but in this case Atlantis, where the replicators they had this plan. Rodney McKay had this plan to get rid of the replicators by like kind of magnetically sucking them to the central part of the planet, and they had to combine themselves so much that they would literally, under their sheer weight, literally make the planet implode. Some of the best sci-fi I've ever seen, Stargate. I had vibes of this because this little compass thing came from a storm. It was this little like charged bunch of particles that looked like a little, what would you call it? Like a little, looked a little bit of metal, literally, that would its own mind, I guess, Greg.
Kind of looked like the in Terminator 2.
Oh yeah, that's a good shout.
Liquid metal T-1000. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Until it turned into a locahedron, whatever they were calling it.
Oh yeah.
Locahedron something.
See, this is the problem with that, because there's another side plot to this whole 4 or 5 subplots of Mariner with her ex-girlfriend who still thinks they're a couple. That was a whole thing as well, which I was a bit, it wasn't required, it wasn't needed. I mean, it basically made this episode a 6 out of 10 for me, Great, if I'm being honest here.
Yeah, that's all I would go, is a 6. And I think I'm being kind. So...
It's a shame, but I found as well, it didn't really make a lot of sense. They literally tried to get rid of this Lumpus by different means. And in the end, they find a way, it turned into this huge thing. The only way they could get rid of it is literally using like a type of frequency to like disrupt the bonds to the bonds within its atoms. And it was from an instrument of Tavin's favorite musician. And the best thing I can think of is
another plot line.
Yeah, exactly. Another one that literally like at least 4 or 5 in this. It's nuts. Like, it was a little musical instrument of tubes that you kind of press them and touch them and swipe them in a certain kind of way. They make kind of different noises and different frequencies and whatnot. And that disrupts it, and you're like, okay, saves the day. But at the end of that, they get an emergency transmission. And we should talk more about the Glumpus thing, but because it was not a great episode, it just shows that we've been talking about the other stuff that's... There's another example, Greg. That should be one of the best bits of the episode. It wasn't, because there was other funny aspects. You never really got
to enjoy enough of it, because you're always moving on to another plot line. I felt like I kept on getting dragged into things every 5 seconds, and I was like, I like that. Oh, now I'm something else. Why I like? Oh, now something else. I mean, it really detracts from the episode. You think they would learn after 5 years?
It was very random at the end. Do you not think at the end, where they got that hail from? There was a tiny little ship stuck within one of the atoms of glue of goo at the end, and that was... I thought it was Voyager. Well, you automatically see Intrepid class starship.
Yeah.
Beef, but it's not. It was another random ship from another random universe that gets stuck there, and they're trying to find their way out. And that's why the Admiral came out of retirement, because he's got a cool mission now. But I just thought, why was this Intrepid ship there? How random was that? It just made
it was really unnecessary. That was like plot line number 16 or something. I mean, it just comes out of nowhere, and they're trying to explain it so fast that you're like, whoa, what? What? I mean, you couldn't even grasp it at the end. It was so quick. It was just like, blah, blah, blah. It was the size of an amoeba. It was like it was thrown in there at the last second just to make something make sense for the Admiral. And I'm like, come on, man, you could have done that.
The episode, Gray, reminds me of... I've got a Trevism coming up, and a Trevor analogy coming up, of, when you've got lots of little odds and ends left in your pantry, your cupboard, right? And you can't be bothered going to do a big food shop. And you're like, listen, this is what my mother used to do all the time. Throw together a meal. So I'll use a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of and some magic sauce on it. And there you go, there's a meal. And I love those meals normally. Like, I'm not knocking that. My mother's cooking. She's not here. I love mother's cooking. So, yeah, exactly. So, a great throw together meal. But that was what this episode was like. Because it's as if someone had, like, several ideas or an idea, and they're like, oh, but I want to include this. And, and that's cool. And I throw that in. And all these things came together, and it didn't. It didn't make any sense.
To use your cooking analogy, it was almost like they had a recipe and they never followed it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like, I'm we always get a couple of these episodes, so I'm hoping they're not going to do too
Yeah.
much of that. But we've been able to hit them for doing this just about every season. They do a couple of these, and I that just sometimes that just bothers me because I'm sitting there going like, all right, you have decent writers on this show. You really haven't caught on yet that doesn't work. I mean, come on. Other people have told you this. They've had to have told you this.
Yeah.
But
It's a filler
whatever.
episode, Bray. We said this before. It's
Yeah.
equivalent of an animated filler episode, which there shouldn't be because it's the same budget, more or less, for every episode because it's animation. So it's a bit
Oh,
different. But we'll let off.
but it's like you and I have said before. There's no excuse for that. If there's a filler episode, that doesn't mean that you make it bad. There was filler episodes in many shows that were always, pretty good, and stuff. But whatever, it happened. They don't learn their lesson. Oh well.
No. So it's not a hit from Gray and I. We both give it about a 6 out of 10. That's fine. Hopefully next week's episode will be a lot better. If you want to come and talk more Star Trek with us, please come over and join us on our Discord, discord.gg/Extreme Gaming Podcast, because first and foremost, we focus on gaming, but we also have a Star Trek channel there as well. We've got Star Trek sci-fi entertainment. There's loads of stuff in there. Gray's entertainment room in there. And say that you came from the podcast. Say hi. We will wrap up for there. Be back for next week's episode. Hopefully it's a bit better. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Gray. And
Sure.
say goodbye to the people.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.